Here's something that catches people out. NIST doesn't tell you to maximize all 7 trustworthy characteristics. It tells you they trade off against each other and that balancing them is a matter of judgment, context, and values. Read that again. The framework explicitly says you cannot have all of it at once. So let me put the tension in front of you. Want maximum accuracy? Use the biggest, most complex model you can. Want explainability? Use something simple enough to read. Want privacy? Restrict the training data. Want fairness across every subgroup? You'll need more data about those subgroups, which is exactly what privacy told you not to collect. Every one of those pulls against another. So anyone promising you an AI system that's maximally accurate, fully explainable, perfectly private, and provably fair is either confused or selling something. In this chapter, we take the first half of the 7. You'll learn what valid and reliable actually requires, and why reliability isn't the same as accuracy. What safety by design means in practice, and what secure and resilient looks like when your attacker can poison your training data or fool your model with changes you cannot see. By the end, you'll understand why these characteristics are the anchor the entire framework hangs from. Let's begin. So let's meet all 7 quickly and then we'll go deep. Valid and reliable. Does it work and does it keep working? This one is foundational. NIST is explicit that without validity and reliability, the others don't matter much. Safe. Does it avoid endangering life, health, property, or environment? Secure and resilient. Can it withstand attack and recover from disruption? Accountable and transparent. Can you tell who's responsible and what the system is doing? Explainable and interpretable. Can you understand how and why it reached an output? Privacy enhanced. Does it respect autonomy, identity, and dignity in how it handles data? And fair with harmful bias managed. Does it avoid discriminating in ways that cause harm? Now look at the shape of that list. The first 3 are engineering properties. Does the machine work? The last 4 are human properties. Can people trust it and live with it? And here's the point NIST makes that I want you to sit with. All 7 require human judgment to balance. There's no formula. Somebody has to decide how much explainability is worth how much accuracy in this context for these people. That decision is governance, which is exactly why governance sits in the middle. So let's untangle 2 words. Valid and reliable. Validity means the system does what it claims, confirmed by objective evidence, not by the vendor's slide deck. Now here's the trap in validity that I want you to see. It's not just is the answer correct. It's are we measuring the right thing at all? Remember the healthcare algorithm using spending as a proxy for need? That model was accurate. Genuinely, it predicted spending brilliantly. It was completely invalid because spending wasn't need. The construct was wrong. So validity has 2 layers. Does it measure the thing accurately? And is the thing it measures the thing you actually care about? The second question is the one that gets skipped, and it's the one that produces scandals. Reliability is different. Reliability is about consistency over time and conditions. Does it perform the same way tomorrow, under load, on Tuesday's data? And here's why you need both. A model can be valid and unreliable. It's right when it works, but it works erratically. Or reliable and invalid. It's beautifully consistent and consistently measuring the wrong thing. That second one is more dangerous because it looks stable. Nothing triggers an alarm, so ask both questions. Is it right, and is it right about the right thing? So let's dig into reliability, because there's a practical problem hiding here that surprises people. Reproducibility. Can you get the same result twice? Traditional software, obviously yes, same input, same output every time. That's the deal. AI, not necessarily. And here's why. Training involves randomness. Random initialization, random shuffling, random dropout. Train the same model twice on the same data with the same code and you can get 2 different models. Similar, usually. Identical, no. And at inference, if there's any sampling involved as there is with generative models, you get variation on every call. Now think about what that does to your assurance process. Your auditor asks, show me that this model produces this output. You run it, it produces something slightly different. What now? I saw a team fail an audit on exactly this. Not because the model was bad, because they couldn't reproduce their own reported results. They hadn't versioned the data, they hadn't fixed the random seed, they hadn't recorded the environment. So the number in their report was, from an evidence perspective, unverifiable. So here's the discipline. Version everything, data, code, configuration, environment, seeds, log it. Because reproducibility isn't a nice to have. It's the difference between having evidence and having a claim. And when you genuinely can't be deterministic, document the variance, bound it, show you understand it. So let's talk about safety. And I want to borrow from disciplines that have thought about this far longer than we have. Aviation, nuclear, medical devices. These fields learned something the hard way. And it's this. You cannot inspect safety in at the end. It has to be designed in from the start. What does that look like for AI? A few principles. First, define the unacceptable outcomes before you build. Not the requirements, the catastrophes. What must never happen. Write that down first. It's a surprisingly clarifying exercise. Second, fail-safe. When the system doesn't know, what does it do? The wrong answer is guess confidently. The right answer is escalate, defer, or stop. I worked with a team who built a triage model that simply routed anything below a confidence threshold to a human. Simple, effective. It cost them coverage and bought them safety, and they made that trade deliberately. Third, constrain the operating envelope. This model is validated for these conditions, this population, this range. Outside that, it doesn't operate. Aircraft have envelopes. Models should too. Fourth, layers. Never one control. If the model is the only thing standing between an input and a consequence, you've built a single point of failure. So here's my question. Has anyone written down what your system must never do? So design gets you to launch. Now what? Because safety isn't a state you achieve, it's a state you maintain. Here's the thing about AI in production. The world moves, your model doesn't. Customer behavior shifts, a competitor changes pricing, a pandemic happens, and suddenly the patterns your model learned are historical fiction, and it will keep answering confidently. That's the danger. So what do you actually watch? Let me give you 4 layers. Watch the inputs. Are they still shaped like your training data? Input drift is your earliest warning, and it fires before performance visibly degrades. Watch the outputs. Is the distribution changing? If your approval rate quietly moved 5 points, something happened. Watch the outcomes. This is the hard one because outcomes lag. You approve a loan today and learn if it defaults in 2 years. So you need proxy outcomes in the meantime, and watch the humans. Override rates, complaint volumes. I said this earlier, and I'll say it again, because it's the most underrated signal in the whole system. Your operators notice things before your dashboards do, they just need somewhere to report it. So ask yourself, if your model degraded quietly starting tomorrow, what would tell you? And how long would it take? So let's talk security and start with the honest news. Your existing security program covers maybe half of this. The half it covers is real and important. An AI system is software. It runs on infrastructure. It has APIs, credentials, dependencies, access control applies, encryption applies, vulnerability management applies. Your model artifact is an asset that can be stolen. Your training pipeline is a supply chain that can be compromised. All of that is familiar ground. But here's the half your security team may not know. AI introduces attack surfaces that simply don't exist in traditional software. The model itself can be attacked, not the server, the model. Someone can query it repeatedly and reconstruct it. That's model extraction. Someone can query it and determine whether a specific person's data was in the training set. That's membership inference. And it's a privacy breach with no perimeter breach. And the data can be attacked. Corrupt the training data, and you've corrupted every decision the model makes afterwards without ever touching production. So here's the framing I'd give your CISO. You've secured the box the model runs in. Have you secured the model? Those are different problems, and only one of them is in your current toolkit. Let's look at the specific attacks next. So let's get concrete about AI-specific attacks, because these genuinely surprise people the first time. Adversarial examples first. Researchers showed you can take an image a model classifies correctly, change pixels in a way no human can perceive, and the model now confidently calls it something entirely different. Same picture to your eye. Different answer. Now make that physical. Put small stickers on a stop sign, positioned carefully, and a vision system reads it as a speed limit sign. That's been demonstrated. Think about that in a vehicle. Then data poisoning. This is the one that keeps me up. An attacker doesn't touch your production system at all. They corrupt your training data. Maybe they contribute to a public dataset you scrape. Maybe they manipulate the feedback loop your model learns from. And now the flaw is baked in, distributed across the weights, invisible to code review. Remember the chatbot that was corrupted within hours by coordinated malicious input? That was learning from its users. exactly as designed. Then backdoors, a model that behaves perfectly except when it sees a specific trigger, and then it does what the attacker wants. So here's the question for your team. Where does your training data come from? Who can influence it? Can you prove it wasn't tampered with? Most organizations cannot answer that third one. So security is about preventing attacks. Resilience is about what happens when prevention fails. And it will fail eventually, so let's plan for it. Here's the principle. Resilience means degrading gracefully rather than collapsing. Think about aircraft. Multiple engines, redundant hydraulics, manual reversion. The design assumption isn't nothing will fail. It's things will fail and will still fly. So what does that look like for AI? First, a fallback. If the model is unavailable or drifting or under attack, what runs instead? A simpler rules-based version? A human queue? Nothing at all? The wrong answer is we hadn't considered it, and that's the most common answer. Second, circuit breakers. Automatic thresholds that pull the system out of the loop when behavior goes outside bounds. Not a person noticing. A tripwire. Third, and this is the one nobody plans, rollback. Can you revert to the previous model version? Quickly, I asked a team this once and discovered they'd overwritten it. The old model was gone. Their only path forward was forward. Fourth, and this connects to something I said earlier, retained human capability. If your people cannot do the job manually anymore, you have no fallback, whatever your architecture diagram says. So the drill I'd recommend, turn it off, deliberately, see what happens. Better to find out on your terms. So let's step back and ask why NIST built the framework around these characteristics at all. Why not just list risks? Here's the answer, and I think it's rather elegant. Risks are infinite and they change. Characteristics are finite and stable. Think about it. Every year brings new AI risks. Nobody had prompt injection on their register in 2021. Nobody had agentic action risk in 2023. If the framework were a list of risks, it would be obsolete in 18 months. But trustworthiness, that doesn't change. You still need the system to be valid, still need it safe, still need it secure. Prompt injection is just a new way of attacking security. Hallucination is just a new way of failing validity. The category is held. That's why the framework survived the generative AI wave that arrived 6 weeks after it published. And there's a second reason, which is about people. Trustworthiness is what determines whether AI gets used at all. Not whether it's legal, whether people will accept it. A model nobody trusts is a model nobody deploys, or worse, one they deploy and everyone quietly overrides. So here's the framing for your board. We're not doing this to be compliant. We're doing this because trust is the thing that lets us actually use what we built. That's the business case, honestly stated. So let's gather up part 1 of the characteristics. First, validity has 2 layers, and the second one is the killer. Is it accurate, and is it accurate about the right thing? The healthcare algorithm was accurate and invalid. That combination looks stable and causes scandals. Second, reliable and invalid is more dangerous than valid and unreliable because nothing alarms. Consistency can hide error. Third, reproducibility isn't academic. Version your data, code, config, and seeds, or your evidence is just a claim. Fourth, safety is designed in, not inspected in. Write down what must never happen. Fail safe rather than guessing. Constrain the operating envelope. Fifth, your security program covers the box, not the model. Adversarial examples, poisoning, extraction, membership inference. Ask where your training data comes from and who can influence it. And sixth, trustworthiness anchors the framework because characteristics are stable while risks aren't. That's why it survived generative AI. If you want a detailed structured course on this topic with role plays, quizzes, and practice tests, a Udemy course link is in the description. Do subscribe to the channel if this is useful, and the playlist link is in the description, giving you every video in the series in order. Next, the human-facing characteristics: transparency, explainability, privacy, and fairness. See you there. Bye.